It's time for the Lowell Green Show, originating live on blasttheradio.com. Ask your smart speaker to play Blast the Radio. Live video available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. The number to call or text is 613-413-2217. And now, telling it like it is, here's Lowell Green.
Oh, thank you, John. So, 1:30 this morning, in the darkness, the dead of night, Liberals conspired with the NDP, the Bloc, and the Greens to kill free speech in our country. They cut short debate, rammed through Bill C-10. Sad day. Sad day for freedom in this country. Now, I'll have more to say about this a little later in the program, but first, I've done a lot of mathematics, and I know that makes strong men shudder when I start to do mathematics. Done a lot of thinking, a lot of research about the city of Ottawa spending more than $1 billion for 450 electric buses. There's a great deal more to this story than first comes to mind, okay? As I say, I've done some very serious thinking about this in a much broader context than just buying the buses. That's easy. I've also done, as I say, some serious mathematics. Some of my figures may not be 100% accurate. I had difficulty, for example, finding out exactly what percentage of global emissions are coming from Ottawa, but I have based it on population, so I think I'm pretty close. And I'm sure that by the time I'm finished, you'll get my message on this. And by the way, any of you who are whiz-bangs in mathematics, because I certainly am not, more than welcome to take my figures or dig up some figures of your own and correct me or add to them. Be happy to do that, okay? So here's some of what I'm thinking in this matter. And there'll be plenty of opportunity for you to express your opinions. First of all, is the question, of course, whether electrical buses are even going to work in this climate. No testing, we're just going to buy 450 and pour out over $1 billion. That's one thing. And by the way, it's a premium of about $250 million. These buses cost about 50% more than a regular diesel bus. So of the $1 billion, you're looking at about a quarter of that, about $250 million just for the batteries, okay? So the question is, what exactly are we doing here? What exactly are we paying the extra $250 million for? Now, they tell us that this is to help the environment. But I'd like to see some data on that. Let's have a look at the figures here, folks, okay? Please. We know that overall, Canada produces 1.6% of the Earth's CO2 emissions, okay? We know that, and that's not disputed. The UN agrees with that. The Canadian government, everybody agrees that Canada produces 1.6% of the Earth's CO2 emissions. 1.6% from Canada. Keep that figure in mind, okay? Of that 1.6, to the best of my knowledge, Ottawa produces about 3%. As I say, I base this on population. Population Canada, about 37 million. Ottawa, about 1 million. So it's about 3%. And actually, it's probably a little bit less than 3% because we don't have the manufacturing base that many other places do. But let's leave it at 3%. So let's just keep these figures in mind. Canada produces 1.6 of the Earth's CO2 emissions. Of the 1.6, Ottawa produces about 3%. Okay? But how much do the buses produce? Of the 3% produced by Ottawa, how much do the buses produce? Well, according to the city's own figures, are you ready for this? Buses produce about 2%. So I want you to think of this. So today, as I say, buses produce about 2% of Ottawa's 3% of Canada's 1.6%. So we're going to spend $1 billion to hopefully, because it won't eliminate entirely, but hopefully to lessen 2% of 3% of 1.6%. Now, I asked Debbie to run through some figures, and the best we can figure is that this amounts to about 0.00013% of global emissions. So we're going to spend $1 billion to lessen global emissions by 0.00013%. Like, who the hell will notice? I mean, do you think the old Earth out there that's just shaking under this global warming, do you think the Earth is really going to notice? Oh, I can just see Mother Earth saying, oh boy, you know what? They just bought electric buses in Ottawa. That means we're going to have 0.00013% less global emissions. It's $1 billion. I mean, folks, it doesn't make any sense. And if you just want to examine it, forget the fact that we haven't tested these. We don't know if the batteries will work well in winter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know. But aside from all of that, they tell that we're doing all of this, spending all of this money, instead of spending $1 billion. You know, we'd be better off to spend $1 billion and plant 1 billion trees, for God's sake. Or how about $1 billion to fix up some of the problems in long-term care? Or maybe build a couple new hospitals, okay? So that's it. I mean, the environmentalists say, oh, we got to go electric to save 2% of 3% of 1.6%. You know, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure this out. My daddy, and please don't be offended by this, but it's the fact, okay, my daddy used to claim that the smallest thing in the world, do you know what the smallest thing in the world is, John?
I'm afraid to ask you, Walt.
Probably wisely so.
Yeah.
My daddy used to say the smallest thing in the world was a nit on a gnat's nut.
Yes, of course.
I suggest he was wrong, that the lessening of CO2 emissions by spending $1 billion on buses will be even less, will be even smaller in global terms than a nit on a gnat's nut.
A nit on a gnat's nut. Let me just write that down.
We're going to spend $1 billion. Oh my God. Now let's deal with the broader issue. Why are we doing this, okay? In your opinion, just how serious is this whole issue of global warming? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a global warming denier. Because if you look, any examination of history reveals that in all probability, the Earth is warming very, very slowly, very, very gradually, and has been doing so for 10,000 years. I've done some research. In fact, the lead chapter in my most latest book points out that about 10,000 years ago, right over where you are sitting, John, and all of the people who are listening now, was about a mile-high glacier. Over, honest to God. And I mean, the scientists all agree on this, okay? About 1 mile-high glacier. In some cases, up in the province of Quebec, for example, or what's now Quebec, the glacier in some cases was almost 5 miles high. Gouged out rivers, you know, changed the landscape, etc. So gradually, we don't know why. There were no people around, obviously. Gradually, the Earth warmed a little bit, and the glaciers gradually retreated, and they're still retreating. At one point, they melted to the point where the huge sea was created, the Sea of Champlain. You don't believe me? Just check any of the limestone around here. You know the ridge when you're coming on the Queensway to Canada? There's a ridge there, the Carp Ridge. That's limestone. You know what limestone is? It's an ancient coral reef. Kingston is known as the Limestone City. It's part of an ancient coral reef. Well, you only had coral reef where there was a sea. So we went from a mile-high glacier, gradually melting until it became a sea. Do you know that at one point, when the glaciers were a mile high, the ocean level retreated by about 40 feet? The oceans were about 40 feet shallower than they are today. Let me give you one other example of how global warming has occurred. I mentioned yesterday the ancient city of Ephesus. And you Bible scholars are a member of St. Paul's epistle to the Ephesians. Ephesus in biblical times was a major trading city. It's being rebuilt today, and it's gorgeous. This is the place where there's a toilet there where Nero apparently did his business. So Ephesus, back in biblical times, when St. Paul was making his rounds, writing epistles, Ephesus was an ocean port. It was a major port located on the ocean. Guess how far Ephesus is from the ocean today? Any idea, John?
I couldn't
About
even...
3 kilometers.
There you go. I knew it wouldn't be right on the ocean.
No, it's about 3 kilometers from the ocean. But we know that it was an ocean port. The Bible talks about it.
Sure.
And why else would a city exist in those days when all transportation pretty well was by boat, right? So it was a port city, but now it's about 3 miles, so 3 kilometers from the ocean. Very clearly, there was a point when the ocean was much higher, which indicates to me that probably the glaciers that we see today had melted. It was probably a very warm period. So those glaciers are now telling us are warming, probably did warm at one point and flooded the oceans and made a seaport out of. I just throw that out. These are just facts that you cannot dispute. You know, you can take a lot of what's being said with a grain of salt, but we know that Ephesus in biblical times was a port city. Well, it's not a port city today, which means the ocean was much higher. You've got some texts coming in here. Yes, John.
Yes, we do. And a reminder, the phone number, we love your calls, 613-413-2217. You can also text that number. Barry he says, Lowell, where did all the water go when those glaciers melted?
Well, they went back into the ocean. I said, I'm glad you asked this, Barry. It's a good question. The oceans, when the glaciers were a mile high, 5 miles high, obviously this was water that was drained, came up out of the ocean. The ocean at that point was about 40 feet below what it is now. So gradually, as they melted, formed the sea, and then gradually the sea retreated. For the most part, Lake Champlain is still what's left down in northern New York of the ancient Champlain Sea. But it went back into the oceans, and the oceans came back up again, very clearly higher than they are now, which really raises the question. One of the threats made by Al Gore. Oh, by the way, Al Gore's, he really started this whole thing, at least the panic. Remember his documentary, An Inconvenient Truth?
Yep.
Made all the predictions and so forth. John, you remember how long ago that was? Remember when that came out?
25 years ago, maybe?
No, it was 15 years ago, 2006. And many of the predictions made by Al Gore have not come true. There's still plenty of ice, believe me, in the Arctic. And in fact, the Antarctic is growing. The ice is growing. So one of the questions I have in all of this thing, is still related to the buses. We're buying these buses, spending all of this money to reduce global emissions by zilch. But what's the point? Is there anything, in your opinion, that there's anything that we can do about it anyway? If all of these changes in the climate have occurred long before mankind, is there really anything, do you think, that we can do about it? It puzzles me greatly. Okay. One of the things we know, and we're talking about the oceans, Al Gore predicted that by this time, cities like Halifax and Miami, New York, Los Angeles would be flooded. His claim was that Miami would be under several feet of water. Well, it's not. In fact, the evidence is there that the oceans, if they have risen at all, have risen very, 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 very little in the last 50, 60 years. So a lot of the predictions are not coming true, and certainly not coming true in the speed that was predicted. There does appear to be melting more than usual in the north. I grant you that, but much more slowly than they predicted. Yes, John, more text coming in, please.
Yeah, we do have some comments as well regarding Bill C-10, but we'll go back to that when you go back to that. So let's fast forward to global warming and buses. Michelle says, I bet you spent more time on your numbers, Lowell, than City Council did on theirs.
Probably.
Ann says, data, foreign word to government officials. Lisa has a few comments regarding electric buses. She says, this boggles the mind. This bus money is just to placate the green energy industry. Someone's pockets are being lined. I think the roads in this city need to be repaired ahead of a bus overhaul. Mike says this purchase is unbelievable. Glenn says, bingo, lol, now you have it. The BS story. Wool is being pulled over our eyes. Michelle says, Canada as a whole is a carbon sink, so why are we bankrupting ourselves while Russia, China, and India are not reducing their emissions?
Good question. One of the bits of fright literature that's come out recently, I saw it on Facebook and I've seen it elsewhere, is this prediction. And one of the predictions is that if global temperatures rise by 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, that the crops will fail. There'll be worldwide crop failures, and thus followed by worldwide starvation. This is an outrageous lie. This is pure and utter bullshit. Bullshit piled on top of whale shit. Let me just point something out. Have any of you who are listening now or watching ever been to Florida? You ever been to Florida, John?
I have not.
Been to California, Southern California?
Been to Nevada, and I've been to South Carolina.
A little bit warmer than here, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm really putting you on the spot here.
It's okay.
I've done some research, which obviously very few other people ever do. A lot of people live in Florida.
Yep.
Last time I checked, it grows great crops. How much, on a daily average, how much warmer do you think Florida is daily than Ottawa? What do you think might be the difference in temperature?
You know, Lowell, you asked us this question before, and now I feel like I'm sitting down to do my final exam, and I didn't pay attention to the teacher.
All right, I'm not trying to embarrass you.
It's about 10 degrees different, isn't it?
Oh, no. The average, listen to this, and the facts are there, folks. You know what? If you don't believe me, just Google average temperature Florida, and then Google average temperature Ottawa.
All right.
Well, guess what? The average temperature, daily temperature, year-round, in Florida, the average temperature, 70.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Average temperature, daily, year-round, Ottawa, 42.8%, 42.8 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a 28-degree Fahrenheit difference in average temperature. So these liars, these bastards out there trying to scare us, trying to make us build more windmills and all the rest of it, and cut down and, all the things about green energy. They're claiming that if world temperatures increase 1.5, the crops will fail. Well, I'm going to tell you, excuse me, the average temperature in Florida is 28 degrees greater than Ottawa, and they grow crops in Florida very, very well. As a matter of fact, if the temperature in Ottawa increased on average 1.5 degrees, we'd grow a lot more crops here. We might be able to grow oranges. So it's just the lies that are coming out is unbelievable.
I would like to use my get out of jail free card. I didn't know you were using Fahrenheit.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, man. But the misleading, the lies that are being spread out there.
Yes.
And sadly, nobody ever seems to question these. So my question is, if warmer temperatures, even slightly warmer, are so damn dangerous, how come millions of people from Ontario flee to Florida every year? And in fact, millions of people live in Florida. Yeah, it gets hot in the summer, but they adapt. It's on average, 28 degrees higher than in Ottawa. Shields, I've got to get some word in for my good friends. And I mean good friends. These are great people at Shields. I just want to point out that the big Frigidaire sale, and it's going very well. Excuse me, my throat is just giving out. Big Frigidaire sale ends at the end of this month. You can save a lot of money. Shields sells a lot of Frigidaire. A lot of people don't know that Shields is one of the larger appliance dealers in this area, in Eastern Canada. A lot of people don't know that. They've been at it since 1947. Excellent reputation. They sell a lot of product. Prices are very, very good. Guarantees are good. Delivery is great within a day or two or three at most. So they're major suppliers. So Frigidaire has struck a special deal, and they pass the savings on to you. You can save on some Frigidaires up to $1,200. And not only that, on some installations, if you want an installation of dishwashers, for example, you can order it right there at Shields. And not only will they deliver your dishwasher and some other appliances, they will install them at the same time. Thank you very much. Thank you. John, you've got some more texts coming in here.
Yep, and we'd love some calls, too, of course. A reminder, 613-413-2217. Here's a text right now. Lowell, we haven't been able to stop earthquakes and volcanoes since the start, so why do our politicians think that we can stop any climate change by changing the type of vehicles we drive? An email from Rob in Carlton Place. Considering that half the electricity in Ontario is produced by natural gas, we should say the reduction is half of 2% of 3% of 1.6%. Damn it, Rob. Damn it. Peter says S&C get the deal from Watson on the buses. It's like the new train scam. Dean says for every billion we spend on buses, China will spend 100 times that much on new coal-burning plants. Cheryl says there's nothing that makes any sense in Canada anymore, lol. Kathy says stop building cement cities. Cement creates heat. And Rick says those glaciers existed because the earth cooled and then it warmed, and there was no one around to see it or affect it. Nothing has changed, and certainly not because of anything we did. Lynn adds, so if Ottawa's buying all these electric buses, what's going to happen to the buses we have now? And Sharif says they told us it would be minus 10 in the summer in Canada.
Well, some of the things, and by the way, one of the things, of course, that is very deceiving is we have come to believe, even people who really don't believe that global warming is all that serious, and maybe you don't think there's anything we can do about it, have still come to believe that there are more hurricanes and more tornadoes than normal. But if you once again do the research, and you will find to your surprise that in fact in the past 10 years, well actually it's almost 20 years now, on average there have been fewer hurricanes in the Atlantic. I haven't checked the Pacific, but there have been fewer Atlantic hurricanes than average during the past 20 years. And as far as tornadoes go, the average number of tornadoes in the mainland United States is down considerably in the last 10 years. The facts are there. You can check it out. Now, one of the things, of course, is that, 50 years ago, excuse me, even 25 years ago, we didn't have weather channels. Weather channels make a lot of money on these huge storms. So they magnify them. And, when a big storm comes up and, oh, my God, it gets front page coverage and guy stands out there and leans into the wind and there's flying debris all over the place. And everybody thinks, oh, it's global warming. It's global warming. Well, in fact, on average, I repeat, and you can check this yourself, on average, fewer hurricanes in the last 15 to 20 years and fewer tornadoes, particularly fewer tornadoes. I'm not saying we don't have them. We do. It's some serious ones. But average has not gone up. In fact, it's gone down. One of the problems, as I say, in addition to the weather channels, which exacerbate this appearance of problem, is that the damage very often is much higher and death toll is much higher. Why? Because a lot more people live and buy homes, including Al Gore, by the way, and David Suzuki, buying homes by the oceans. So, excuse me, the closer you live to the ocean, the more likely you're going to be struck with a hurricane, and thus the damage will be greater. So that explains a lot of it. So it really raises the question, if there really isn't all that much to worry about, and there's a good chance that we can't do anything about it anyway, why the hell are we spending $1 billion on electric buses? When at the very least, as I say, at the very most, it will lessen global emissions, my memory will be right, 0.00013%. Why not take the $1 billion and fix up the problem in long-term care, please? Could we not do that? Now, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. This business of Bill C-10. I don't understand you liberals. I understand you NDP. I mean, NDP is essentially, today particularly, is pretty well just a cult. It doesn't, most of what you're saying and doing, it does, as relates to the environment, doesn't make any sense. And free speech makes no sense whatsoever. So in the dead of night, at 1-3 in the morning, don't forget they shortened debate, they cut debate off on this. The Conservatives have been trying desperately to debate this thing, to get some amendments to at the very least protect you and me, John, from the ravages of the CRTC. So they cut short. They stopped debate. And now with the aid, as I say, the compliance of the NDP, the Bloc, and the Green, and the dead of night, 1:30 in the morning, they passed Bill C-10. Sad, sad day, folks. And to you liberals, one of the questions I have for you is, okay, you don't want me to be able to say what I say. You don't want other people to complain about government or this or whatever. You'll have the right to decide what you want people to say. CRTC will control that. So what's next? When you control or censor social media, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, etc., when you have control over that, what's next? When do the book burning parties start, gang? Unbelievable. Shame on everybody. Liberals or conservatives or NDP, whoever supports this, or who stood idly by and let it happen. Shame on you. It's the beginning of the end of free speech in this country, believe me. Sad, sad, sad. Never thought I'd say it about my own country. Thank God I'm at the end of my career. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough of that. John, I've got to get some more text here, please.
Kathy says this is a very sad day for Canada, referring to Bill C-10. Cheryl says free speech has officially died in Canada. Mark your calendar, folks. Peter says C-10 is just a gag law to punish freedom of speech by the Trudeau Liberals. Pass it in the dead of night. Shameful. Nothing like controlling social media and also getting money from Netflix, Amazon, over $1 billion to waste on his pet projects, a.k.a. throwing money out to his woke causes. But if he calls an election before it's passing, it's dead in the Senate. He will blame the Conservatives for not protecting Canadian heritage.
Yeah, that's could very well be true. Could very well be true. It's something, it's very strange because, I mean, they have done everything they can to push this through. So it always makes me wonder, what are we missing here? Why the urgency? I mean, they know that there are a lot of people, including liberals, who are very concerned about this. Some of the outspoken criticism has come from liberals. So why the urgency here to sneak it through in the dead of night, to stop debate on it, to ram it through?
May I ask what they were doing, passing legislation at 1:30 in the morning? That's unusual, is it not?
Yes, it is. I don't know. And this, by the way, raises another question. I had difficulty finding any news coverage of this. Here is a major bill that they've rammed through that will have widespread effects on life and freedom of speech and democracy. And by and large, the media just seemed to almost ignore it. I don't know if the media was all asleep at 1:30 in the morning. I don't know.
I happened to stumble upon it around 10 o'clock this morning.
I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on in this country. It's sad. But you know what, John? As long as I and you still have freedom to say what we want here, we'll continue to do so.
Yes,
I don't think we'll be able to do it for much longer. The CRTC, I understand, will be hiring a large number of people whose job it will be to monitor everything we say, everything we see, and censor it. They will decide, the CRTC, dictated to by the Liberal Party, will decide what's acceptable and what is not acceptable. And anybody that tries to say anything or do anything or show anything that they deem to be unacceptable, that'll be the end. Centennial Glass. Here is another great local company, folks. Take great pride in their workmanship. Windows, doors, screens, repairs, emergency repairs, major jobs, small jobs, mirrors, beautiful mirrors, glass, customized glass furniture. I keep talking about this because increasingly customized glass furniture is becoming more and more popular. And nobody does it better. Nobody does it better than Centennial Glass. I'm sorry, we just don't have time to take any more calls.
Fair enough.
Barry will take your call tomorrow. My throat is absolutely giving out. So once again, folks, listen, if you care about free speech, and if you're listening here, you probably do, don't let it rest, okay? At the very least, text. Yeah, I'm not even asking people to phone anymore. Nobody phones anywhere. At least text your MP. It's easy. I mean, you know what riding you're in. And if you're not even sure what riding you're in, you can find that. Just Google. Spend 10 minutes on Google. Find out the email address of your MP and let them know that you do not approve of this, that you feel that this is the beginning of the end of free speech and this is not Canada. Please. You know, we can't just let government elected officials, some of whom are not very bright, and some of them not very honest either. We can't throw it all to them. We have a responsibility as well. Please do your part. Google whatever it is, and at the very least, text 3 or 4 lines. What will it take you? 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
If that.
If that. Thank you, John. We will be back.
Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com. Show info and links at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Subscribe to the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more.